Welcome to Tuesday afternoon here on Colombo Company on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. I'm Tony Colombo here in studio with producer Ashlyn, and we obviously have got a lot to talk about today. All of the latest information surrounding what is happening with the conflict in Iran and the Middle East and the ultimatum that has been given by the president, reaction to his statements, and, preparation as we see what happens here over the next several hours and into the evening as we approach the 8 p.m. Eastern Time deadline given by the president to the Iranian regime to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face a increased military attack that the president says will be like nothing we've seen before to this point. So, obviously, a lot to unpack there. It's also election day across the state of Missouri. We're going to talk about what is on the local ballots and talk about what we are hoping for, what we are expecting, which sometimes those two things are very different. We're going to talk to Mike Ferguson, the host of Mike Ferguson in the Morning, every morning here on News Talk STL in the 3 o'clock hour, and focus a lot on those local issues and the things on your ballot. By the way, if you haven't voted yet today and you are still making plans to do so, which I hope you are, don't forget that you can go to our website, newstalkstl.com, and get a voter guide. You can go in to the website and click the voter guide button, and then it'll take you to a spot where you just put in your address, and you can get your ballot. You can take a look at it so you know exactly what is on there. If you need to, want to do some research on a topic before you head to the poll, you can do that by just going to our website again, newstalkstl.com. I voted this morning, and there was actually more people. There were the breaking news. The report is that there were people there. There were several people in line and several people voting while I was there, and obviously that's been a big part of this discussion surrounding any April election, but specifically this one, as we have talked to various candidates running for school board and talked about the various issues like the Prop RT issue in St. Charles County. There's a lot of concern over voter turnout. Now, obviously, I'm not expecting that to change in any big way, but it was a pleasant surprise to see more people than I thought I would at my polling place this morning. So we're going to get into all of those issues as we go through the afternoon as well. I mentioned we're going to talk to Mike Ferguson. That'll be around 3:25 this afternoon. Right before we talk to Mike, we're going to talk to his co-host, Susie Moore from Red State, our legal expert who joins us every Tuesday afternoon here on Colombo Company. We'll be checking in. We will be getting an update on what is happening with the Supreme Court. Last time we talked to Susie 1 week ago, we were sort of gearing up for the birthright citizenship case, and then that came and went with some news with Donald Trump attending the Supreme Court. First time in American history that has happened, that an American president has attended a hearing like that. And then, with everything else that's happened in the news, we've kind of fallen off on, the news coming out of the Supreme Court being at the top of the headlines. So want to get up to speed on all of those things when we talk to Susie Moore. Obviously, I'm sure she'll have some thoughts on the local issues and what's happening in Iran as well. We'll continue to cover all of that stuff as we go through the afternoon. And we've got some other interesting news happening today. Reaction to the $20 minimum wage that was put into place in California and how devastating that has been to not only employees but also businesses in that state, and more as we go through this very, very busy afternoon. So Susie and Mike will be joining us in the 3 o'clock hour, and right now starting things off with us, and he'll be here for this entire 2 o'clock hour, as he is every Tuesday afternoon. A great day to have somebody help us unpack and react to everything that is happening in this world. Crane Durham from nothingbutTruth.com and the Nothing But Truth Facebook page is on the line. And Crane, on a heavy day like this, it's important to remember that brothers don't shake hands. Brothers gotta hug.
Let's hug it like it's 1984 and Reagan just got reelected. Let's do that.
It's that kind of
pat each other on the back with guarded optimism for the future.
And a little squeeze.
A little squeeze.
Right at the end, that little extra.
Sweatshirt to sweatshirt.
Amen. Hopefully with the sweatshirts can come off tomorrow, but it's still cold today. It's supposed to warm up tomorrow. Hope that does happen. So, where to start? Trump's ultimatum to the Iranian regime to open the Strait of Hormuz or face a military action that would outdo anything that we have seen to this point, which has obviously been pretty intense. I do want to, in a second here, I want to walk through the timeline, because anybody that thinks that, like, this is out of the blue or that President Trump hasn't, just all of a sudden ramped things up to this level in the last 24 hours or, don't I think a lot of people don't realize, just how long the president has been warning against this exact thing and this exact level of military response. It's not something that's just developed in the last 24 or 48 hours. It's been going on for weeks. And I have a list here of all the various announcements and Truth Social posts and reports to the White House, things like that, that show how this has ramped up and gotten us to this point. So, but before we get into that, I just want to get your initial thoughts on what you think about this deadline tonight, the threats from the president about how intense it will be if Iran doesn't come to the negotiation table in the next several hours, and if it's the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do. How do you feel about this at this point?
I feel his rhetoric is necessary. It's appropriate, and I'm speaking to the Easter rhetoric as well. The reason I think this is it's not only been for the last 47 years. We can go back to RFK's assassin, Sirhan. We've dealt with radical Islam. Before that, in the inception of our country, relative, 1803, we dealt with the Barbary pirates. Radical Islam has been at war with us, and it's fighting on many different levels. But a big part of their fight is kinetic, and it's supported by the Iranian government. And the Iranian government has slaughtered a lot of folks, including Americans. And this is an opportunity to rid the world of a state sponsor of terrorism, the greatest state sponsor in the sense of the amount, not in the sense of what they do, but what they are able to produce. Incidentally, they produce more than a 2,000-mile missile. They said they didn't, but they could, right? And they did. So we can't verify anything with these jokers. Or these are barbarians. I mean, they believe in bringing on the 12th Imam through a cataclysmic event, possibly a nuclear event. And everybody is sitting back going, well, that rhetoric, I don't think that's helpful. I've been a critic of some of the communication of Donald Trump, a lot of it, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But
you and I both have been. You and I have never backed away from criticizing this president or the administration or the Republican Party. Just as much as we do the Democrats and the liberal media when we believe that they are out of line. And there have been times where this president, in fact, that's one of my biggest criticisms and issue with the president is sometimes his rhetoric and the way he speaks and how it's, always covered with he's just playing 4D chess. Oh, he doesn't mean it. he doesn't really mean it when he says it. He's just playing this. Well, okay, but what can he tell us when he means it and when he doesn't mean? Those type of things.
Yeah.
And you and I have never hesitated to do that. Neither is Dr. Randy Tobler, who is with me every Thursday. Of course, the Randy Tobler show is every Saturday morning. And what I find interesting, Crane, is that he this morning with Vic was saying basically the same thing you're saying. And and I think a lot of people would expect people like you and me and Tobler to have a problem with this. And I'm not saying that I don't. I'll weigh in. I'll give you, we'll get into all my opinions as we go through the afternoon. But yeah, I think as you're saying this, it really, to me at least, it really means something when folks who have been very open about calling this president out or being critical of this president are on his side when it comes to this action. Sorry about that.
Not at all. No apologies necessary. I'm glad to hear it, because I think what we understand who applaud this rhetoric even is to say we've been at war with radical Islam and we fought on their terms. They subvert our laws and our national security by funding education departments around the country with certain universities to the tune of billions. And they undermine our system by claiming Islamophobia when we recognize the distinct difference between Islamists, a radical Islam supporter, versus a regular American Muslim like one Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, for example. They do that so they silence us talking about it. And I wonder how many people have to die before we get honest about our enemies and have the courage to speak up and expose them. And I think they're becoming very clear in the way that they respond to certain things. Are they using Islamophobia to shut out the conversation that would liberate their fellow Muslims in the world and possibly save many lives around the world? That, to me, is a pretty easy choice. We always talk about how if a Christian were doing this in the name of Jesus, first off, theologically, they'd be just wrong. I mean, it's not our dance. But the fact is, we know that people are using Islam to justify this, and governments are using Islam to do it. And you say, well, we got to, there's two, remember, Shia, Sunni, and we got to, make sure we don't. No. Hamas was Sunni.
Let me ask you about that double standard, because I think that double standard is part of the conversation, because so many people are upset with the president's rhetoric, and and I have a little bit of an issue with the I don't know that any president should be saying that a whole civilization will die tonight.
Okay, can I take that real quick?
Yeah, please.
Because I think that's the Truman moment. Do you think Truman wanted to kill all those folks and drop 2 bombs? No. Why did he drop 2 bombs? Because they didn't unconditionally surrender yet. And there were those who are going to take the emperor and say, subvert the emperor, and in essence, a coup, who wanted to fight on because they were so dedicated to their death cult of militaristic Japanese imperialism, elements of Shintoism. I get it. My point is, this is the moment, because he's saying, and it's in his speak. Okay.
Yeah.
It's in his speech.
I get it. He
wants to. Yeah.
I don't have the same I don't have the same outcry that we have seen from others. I'm just saying that though that language is something that is obviously going to be jumped on by the left.
It's Islamic terrorist language. Actually.
And that's exactly where I'm going with this, because of the double standard that exists, because this is exactly how they talk about us, and in much worse terms about Christians and gays and women. And I mean, just like if you want to talk about the level of threats and violence and what their plans would be for us and the world. What Donald Trump has said is nothing. But I do understand, I do understand to a point the criticism of that type of rhetoric from a sitting president. A whole civilization will die tonight. I understand completely what's going on. I understand the message that he's sitting there, and I think that he is showing how serious he is in this moment by taking it to that level. But, I'm not going to say that I think that is the perfect way to say that.
No, it is not the perfect way. And if there was a way to get him to speak in the way I would like it, because I don't think it's necessarily a service to the mission, but at the same time, in all that speak and that rhetoric, he contradicts himself, because he's actually just speaking of this evil IRGC,
right,
the ruling party and the people. And he doesn't do what Reagan did and make that separation.
So
and everything else.
Can you make this threat? And now let's get away from the rhetoric and look at the reality of the situation and the idea of a massive military strike if negotiations don't happen in the next several hours. Can you do what is necessary? Because I agree 100%. You and I have talked about this for weeks and months, and I've had multiple conversations. I think there are so many people that are on the same page of you have to eliminate this regime from its roots. You have to eradicate this terroristic, hate-filled, murderous regime, from every crack and crevice. You just can't leave anything. You can't leave anything left there to grow and reestablish itself. Can that be done without massive casualties to the Iranian citizens, who, many of which, despite what the media will sometimes tell you, many of which are very happy about the idea of the United States eliminating this murderous regime so they can install a more representative government for themselves. Can you do that? Can you do what needs to be done without, quote, wiping out a whole civilization?
Well, again, and I don't think he's going to wipe out a civilization. I think that is Trump speak, and I'm not saying he's playing 4D chess. I think there's an unpredictability to President Trump that scares the hell out of our enemies, and thank God for it.
Yeah.
And I also think that if you channel your message to the Iranian people, and this is why, no, I wouldn't have said it. I don't think it was the most productive thing to say, but when he's talking about the plans, he's mentioned on Monday the plans he has. There's plans everywhere, right? He has a plan here, plan there. There's so many plans. And CENTCOM has run numerous plans through. I think there's something else at play here. He is saying that I'm willing to destroy the country to liberate the people. And guess what? The people are the ones okay with it because they want to live in freedom. And it's already been a slaughter of their own citizens, 45,000 to 60,000 already by this regime. They're going to die
for decades.
For decades, and they've killed for decades. So what do? You speak in the only language they understand, which this is the deal. And I've said it day one, fighting radical Islam. When you're fighting radical Islam, you got to humiliate it.
Yeah.
You got to say, you know what? I don't want to end up in dust. Yeah. So we're never going to do that again.
And you have to eradicate it. You have to. You have
exactly what you said.
Eradicate it.
Exactly what you said. And you made such a good point because of the double standard. Now, do I want a world that is like this? No, I want, I like the land of milk and honey and birds chirping and walking in the park and not worrying about getting mugged. Yeah, that'd be nice, Forest Park. But here's the deal. That's not the world I live in. Yeah. And the number one job of my government is to protect me. And the other party has made it very clear they're not interested in it.
No.
They're interested in dividing me and every which way, even being anti-American in their support for certain elements. And I'm sitting back going, you know what? I want a president that protects me and understands evil. And this is an evil. Yeah, rhetoric wise, I'm a different page, right? Very different. But the fact is, what he is saying, in my estimation, how I interpret Donald Trump is, we're going to eradicate you. You're done. You don't understand. We're going to take your system down. You're going to go back to the dark ages.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult decision, and it can be done. I think there's another plan here. I would be very surprised if we're not arming the Iranian people, Israel as well. I'd be very surprised to hear if history books read that we weren't doing other things under the scene because we had to get their internet is shut down for the people, but for the military, they can't even talk to each other, talking through carrier pigeons or what Trump described as kids running little notes. But my point is, he is taking these steps overtly to say, I'm willing to do this because we cannot ever have a radical Islamic theocracy threatening the world with enemies, with things that present an existential threat, not only to Israel, but to the United States and the rest of the world.
And let me just say that, I am all for very tough talk and rhetoric. It's not that I don't think that the president can speak bluntly or should. I think he absolutely should speak at their level, especially at the point where we're at in this. But in the world that we live in, you need to be, because I don't care what the Democrats in Congress think. I don't care what the Republicans in Congress think. I don't care what the media thinks or says. But it is important that the American people and the world understand what is happening and what you are planning and what you are going to do. And that's where the words matter. I don't care about the way it's going to be reported on. I don't care what Lindsey Graham thinks about it or Chuck Schumer thinks about it or, anybody like that. But the people of the United States need to know what their president is. If he's going to be speaking publicly, then he needs to be clear about exactly what he's saying. And that's where my concern comes in with the rhetoric, which, again, nowhere near the level that you will see on other places, but I think still an important point. Crane, we got to take a quick break. We're going to continue the conversation with Crane Durham. You talked about the other party's unwillingness to do anything about this situation. There are other organizations around the world that have shown that same unwillingness, including the United Nations, where there was a resolution that failed today that would hold Iran accountable for its actions in the Strait of Hormuz. We'll tell you about that a little bit, and I want to walk you through some of this timeline that has gone on over the last several weeks that has brought us to the point where Donald Trump has made this final ultimatum to the Iranian regime and the leaders of that country to negotiate immediately or face military action like we have not seen to this point. So we're going to continue with all of this as we continue also with Crane Durham next.
In other words, I love you.
Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL. If you have a phone, you have a radio. Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
Love the all-new app.
And listen anytime, anywhere.
Gresser Electric is the local team that you can trust if you have any electrical problems at your home or business, or you have any electrical projects coming up at your home or business. Grasser specializes in all electrical needs, ranging from large-scale commercial projects all the way down to simple home service needs like replacing a bad light switch. we found the team at Grasser. We actually live right down the street from Grasser Electric, which has been super convenient whenever we have needed their services. And we discovered them a few years ago when we moved into our new home and basically became their neighbors. And from that moment on, I was just, the first time that we used them, just blown away by the customer service, especially when it comes to the technicians, the guys that are in your home working on something as important as your electrical needs. The professionals at Grasser are exactly the type of professionals that you want handling that type of an issue. They also offer free quotes at Grasser Electric, so if you have an electrical problem or just need a quote for new work, you need to contact Grasser Electric now. Learn more and contact them through the website grasserelectric.com.
Yo, this is Vic. Vic for Vets is proudly honoring our veterans. Every Wednesday at 11:05, you'll hear about that day's honoree and their incredible service to our country.
Hi, it's Ken. You want to nominate a veteran? Send their name, service information, and story to me, Ken, at newstalkstl.com.
Brought to you by Heroes Care, Alamo Military Collectibles, Gemini Wealth Group, Michael's Funeral Home, and Freddy's Market.
Together, let's celebrate the heroes in our community. Vic for Vets, where honor meets gratitude.
Hello, St. Louis. This is Everett Jones of Jones Air and Water Treatment. I know you're ready for some summer weather. While we still have the spring to get through, this is a great time to think about your swimming pools. That's right, now is a great time to save on EcoSmart salt-free, chlorine-free, acid-free pool products. Call now and get 50% off glass pack media and 15% off all other EcoSmart products. Call now at 636-899-1040, now through the end of April.
If you have a tree that you think is dead, it might not be dead. Why don't you try to save it first with Roots Plus? Roots Plus can help you save your tree and keep your cash. RootsPlusLLC.com. That's RootsPlusLLC.com or 314-440-3662.
On the next
Larry Connors, USA.
The story behind the story. Paula Sims, convicted of killing 2 of her children because they were girls.
Larry Connors, USA. Now, weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Some people call me the space cowboy. Yeah. Some call me the gangster of love.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.9 News Talk STL. Tony Colombo here in studio. Crane Durham from NothingButTruth.com on the line with us, talking about Trump's ultimatum, the deadline tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, of course, 7 o'clock here in St. Louis. That is the deadline that the president has given the Iranian regime to negotiate. And it's not just open negotiations. It's have some, at least in the president's words, concrete, finalized agreements and details about reopening the Strait of Hormuz or opening the Strait of Hormuz is the only thing that will stop this military action that will take place after 8 o'clock tonight. So we are monitoring all of this as we go through the afternoon, of course. And Crane, as I mentioned, this is not something, if you have a real life and responsibilities and, a career and a family and kids to raise and everything, you may not, and you don't watch the news all day, every day, like nerds like Crane and I, this may seem, and it's kind of being reported in some places as the president, dropping this sort of out of nowhere in the last 48 hours, and the president has ramped this up to a level that it doesn't belong, and all of these types of things, and that's just not the case. And in fact, it's kind of the opposite. And one of the things that I have talked about recently, and actually talked about this exact thing yesterday, that this president and any president needs to be very careful about making deadlines and ultimatums and public timelines. Because if you don't back up, Barack Obama and his red line comes to mind. If you don't back up your, the ultimatums and the deadlines, then the world and your enemies start to realize that you're more talk than action. So you may not like that the president has done this, but now that if you're going to make a deadline, you have to stick to it if you want to hold that credibility in the world.
That's the rule.
Yeah,
that's the rule.
And that's actually not what has happened with this president to this point. I remember I've talked about this a lot. I think 2 Mondays ago, we started the week with the president saying that the first phase of Operation Epic Fury would be over in 6 days. That didn't happen, obviously. It's actually been the opposite of the president saying something and then going forward with that, on the exact day or timeline that he has said up to this point. So just a lot of misreporting out there, and I think a lot of beliefs that are misguided. So I just want to go ahead. Yeah, please.
With that point, and it's an excellent point, because obviously we're dealing with a fluid situation here. So the ultimatum, you look at that and you say, well, the first rule of negotiation is if you give an ultimatum, you're willing, you've exacted the cost and you know what it is, but you're willing to follow through.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I see is the fluid situation being where they can pause it, give it more days and all that. And it's exactly what you said. Look, there are people out there who want to make this all about the Jews. There are people out there who want to make it all about something it's not. Oh, America's bad history. Screw you. Pardon my language. One, anti-Semitism, it's ridiculous. It's on the rise. The media doesn't want to recognize it. It should. It's a threat. The other thing is our history is, though imperfect, the best thing going around. We have lived up to what our Declaration says. We have had a society where we were not judging people by the color of their skin, but rather the content of their character. We have a society where an American citizen can start at the bottom and go to the top, and with a dream, with a good or service to bless others with. We have that. And those that want to demonize us by taking history out of context, pardon the language, screw you. You're so wrong. And you're hurting America. We've got an entire generation, sweet Moses, an entire generation that has an anti-American inculcation and indoctrination, and that's a real threat to our republic. And so I don't only disagree with those people, I strongly disagree with them. And you've got to say, hey, wait a second. Are you serious? What about this? What about this? What about this? We could take each and every episode of history, but to say, oh, America's been the bad guy. Look at the Cold War. We are advancing our interest and freedom against the Soviet Union. It doesn't take a rip at Einstein or a historian to recognize that. What it takes is somebody who's intellectually honest to tell you why we were doing certain things. Oh, we caused the Iranian Revolution. Wrong. Elements of it, but there was a lot more going on there than you could ever possibly imagine. It had to do with our interest, but nobody wants to talk about that.
No, and it's such a great point.
And others,
go ahead, finish your point.
Tucker Carlson and others making statements against our country. And the problem is, you can make those statements, but they got to be true, and they're not.
And you make such a great point about, and this is another thing that we've said over and over again. Ever since I've been on the air, talking about major issues like this, we don't learn or study or understand our history as much as we should, because these lessons, so much of this is if you know your history and you know the path that we've been on and the things that have happened in the world, specifically in the Middle East with Iran, we're talking about this exact thing. This is the ultimate. Where else would we be at this point if you understand where we're at and the types of threats that have been levied against us and the way that they have behaved for decades over there and the way that we have, sometimes gotten involved but not finished the job and other times just turned a blind eye. I mean, learning and understanding your history would just make the world such a a better place, a more prepared place. But we don't do that. We don't. There's so many. Every generation, it's like they're experiencing it for the first time. Whereas if there was just if we were better about teaching and understanding history, I think you could just a lot of better decisions could be made. So how did we get here? Let's talk about recent history here. How did we get here over the last several weeks to the point now where we have this ultimatum tonight at 8:00? As I mentioned, this is far from the first time that the president has laid out a deadline. Now, I believe him on this one. We'll see how it plays out. However, to act like this hasn't been done, it has been done and many times in just the last several weeks. Let's start with March 21st. A Truth Social post from Trump declared that if Iran did not, quote, fully open the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, the United States would obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. A 48-hour deadline issued on March 21st. 48 hours later, on March 23rd, after that, Trump wrote on Truth Social that the U.S. had a productive conversation with Iran and that he had ordered the Pentagon to delay any strikes on Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for 5 days. There's another deadline. March 26th, Trump again extended his deadline, this time by 10 days to April 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern, saying in a Truth Social post that he was, quote, pausing the period of energy plant destruction, unquote, at the Iranian government's request. Then on March 30th, Trump, in a Truth Social announcement, said that there was, quote, great progress that had been made in negotiations to end the conflict. At the same time, he warned that if a deal was not reached and the Strait of Hormuz was not immediately opened, the United States would destroy Iran's power plants, oil wells, Kharg Island, and the country's main, the island is the country's main oil export hub, and, quote, possibly all desalination plants. That was March 30th. On April 1st, Trump said Iran requested a ceasefire, a claim Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson called false at the time, according to state news agency over there. In a social media post, Trump said the United States would consider a ceasefire only once the strait was open, free, and clear, adding, until then, we are blasting Iran into oblivion, or, as they say, back to the Stone Ages. On April 4th, which was Saturday, Trump posted that, quote, time is running out, 48 hours before all hell will rain down on them. Then on Sunday, that's when we got this final ultimatum and deadline. On Sunday, Trump said that, quote, Tuesday will be power plant and bridge day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. And that's where he's explicitly put Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So, Crane, going all the way back 3 weeks to March 21st, there was at the time a 48-hour deadline to open the strait. So, anyone who is acting like this is like something that was brought out of the blue in the last couple of days, or this hasn't ramped up to this kind of level, is not reporting the facts accurately.
They're not, and this is why, if he's making these comments about civilization, no, I don't want to make that comment, but I understand it in his context of advancing an agenda, oftentimes behind the scenes, because that's where people who stand up in a place where it's tyranny, you stand up and you say, hey, I'm the guy they're talking with, then you die. So that's something that I trust is going on in the negotiation. There are also those, and these people are really dangerous. There are people out there who say fighting Islam, radical Islam, will breed more of it. It makes us hated, and they're going to hate us more, and then they're going to attack us more. Guess what? Wake up from dreamland.
Yeah.
They're going to attack us more and have attacked us
There's
more.
the history
and
lesson.
Fighting them.
There's the history lesson. The idea that this would go away, this idea, and this is how the left, the progressive crowd, this is how they address every issue. They always say, if you just let them go, they'll work themselves out. We don't have to stop illegal immigrants from coming in because it'll work itself out. They'll be productive. They won't commit crimes. It'll be great. We don't have to enforce our laws because it'll work itself out. It'll be, you only make it worse. You only make it worse if you try to, enforce the law or play by the rules or hold people accountable. You only make it worse if you put them back in jail because of their crimes. Just let them out. Just let them out, and it'll get better. It'll just magically get better. That idea of just that it will somehow they won't hate us as much. This is their belief. This is their foundation. They will hate us. It's not just us.
Look at the vast
it's everybody.
majority of
It's the entire world. They hate everyone. And that will never change. So this idea of you're only making it worse is just a lie. You're either misguided or you're lying if you're saying something like that. Crane,
They're wrong.
Got to
Yes,
take another quick break. Well, we're not done with Crane Durham. Iran has publicly responded to the ultimatum from Donald Trump. I'll read you that statement in just a moment. Also fill you in on that vote that happened in the UN earlier today as we continue with Crane Durham from nothingbuttruth.com next.
For podcast articles and more, find us on newstalkstl.com. If you have a phone, you have a radio.
I listen to News Talk STL on the app driving to work.
Download the News Talk STL app.
You gotta get the News Talk STL app.
Love the app. Can listen anywhere in St. Louis.
And listen anytime.
News Talk STL right on my phone.
Anywhere.
Your business moves fast. PRI Global keeps it moving smarter for almost 30 years, delivering top tech talent to help companies grow stronger, custom applications, simplifying your operations, securing your data, modernizing your business from the cloud up. And with Prismatic, you're going to get real-time insights, automated workflows, people, process, platform. PRI Global delivers all three. PRIglobal.com.
Hey, when pests invade your home, you need someone you can trust. It's Jamie Allman here, and at Buckingham Pest Control, they're not just your exterminators. They're your neighbors and friends. A locally owned family business and St. Louis Magazine A-List award winner, providing affordable, quality pest control. Plus, they offer energy-efficient TAP attic insulation, the only insulation that controls pests. BuckinghamPestControl.com. That's BuckinghamPestControl.com.
Hi, this is Mark Harder with RE/MAX Results, the region's largest RE/MAX real estate brokerage. It is cold outside, but the real estate market is hot. This is a great time to buy or sell a home. Interest rates are also declining, which gives you more buying power. Someday is not a day on the calendar, but today is. Call me at 314-852-8933 for a free custom home buying plan. 314-852-8933.
Hey, it's Mike Ferguson. Mario's Donut Restaurant, that's your place to go for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. From mouth-watering sandwiches, omelets, delicious gyros, and Mexican dishes, to their revamped menu with cannolis, tiramisu, baklava, and danishes. And don't forget those famous donuts. Dine in or carry out, Mario's friendly staff is ready to serve you with love and care. Mention News Talk STL when you visit, or just visit mariosdonutrestaurant.com.
This hour of Colombo Company brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.9 News Talk STL. Got a few minutes left here with Crane Durham from nothingbuttruth.com. In the 3 o'clock hour, we are going to talk to the morning show. We're going to, at 3:05, we're going to talk to Susie Moore. And then at 3:25, we are going to talk to Mike Ferguson. want to talk about this UN resolution today, just to give, paint a larger story of the what is happening all around the world. Russia, China, and France vetoed a UN Security Council resolution today aimed at reopening the Strait of Hormuz just hours before President Donald Trump's deadline. Quote, no one should tolerate that they are holding the global economy at gunpoint, but today Russia and China did tolerate, said U.S. Ambassador Mike Walls. Continuing, quote, they sided with a regime that seeks to intimidate the Gulf into submission, even as it brutalizes its own people during a national internet blackout for daring to imagine dignity or freedom. The vetoed resolution, which was introduced by Bahrain, quote, strongly encourages states interested in the use of commercial maritime routes in the Strait of Hormuz to coordinate efforts defensive in nature, consummate with the circumstances to contribute to ensuring the safety and security of navigation across the Strait of Hormuz. So Bahrain, in this resolution, just basically calls on the rest of the world to say, hey, this is a worldwide problem, so we should come together to address it. And then it was, as I mentioned, vetoed by Russia, China, and France. Russia and China are the ones on all the headlines, but France was also part of that. I don't know why that's not being reported as much. Bahrain's foreign minister responded to the veto saying, quote, failing to adopt this resolution sends the wrong signal to the world, to the people of the world, the signal that the threat to international waterways can pass without any decisive action by the international organization responsible for the maintenance of international peace and security. So, not a surprise, Crane, but I think it's an important part of the story, and it's important to understand the entire context happening around the world.
Imagine that
we prepare for this. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Russian government and the Chinese government don't hold the same values as Western civilization.
And France, I guess, just doesn't want to get involved.
Yeah, France is being France.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a reason the jokes are there. It's history, folks. Look, Osama bin Laden, I think specifically was in the interview in 2001, but maybe beforehand, spoke to a strong horse, weak horse idea. And the idea was that, hey, Russia came into Afghanistan, boom, we got them out there, the weak horse. They don't have the sustainability power. And the same thing with America, that we can turn them. They'll start out strong, but they won't finish the job. And here's the idea. Do you call President Trump the strong horse or the weak horse right now? I'd say he's the strong horse. I say that as imperfect as he is with his language and everything else, what he is sending the signal is this threat cannot last and must go away. And I find that to be very, very important and good. And the other thing is war crimes, not even close. Dual use on bridges and power plants. And the idea that you want to accuse America of being the bad guy. You want to paint Israel as being the bad guy as well. You all are flipping nuts.
My piece of advice is
way out there.
If you ever hear anybody use the term war crimes, you can just, from that moment on, you can just ignore anything that they have to say because they're not being honest with you. Iran, at least publicly, has not shown any sign of negotiating before the 8 p.m. deadline. With their UN ambassador saying today that Iran will not stand idle in the face of such egregious war crimes. There you go. It will exercise without hesitation its inherent right to self-defense and take immediate and proportionate reciprocal measures if that attack happens. So that's the public statement coming from the Iranian government. Crane, we only have a couple of minutes left here. What is your gut feeling and expectations about the next 24 hours? Do we see this military action actually take place? Do you think that their negotiations start to break through here in the final hour?
I bet on a pause a pause and citing progress. That's what I would bet on. Pause. They're talking someone within the Iranian government. I think long term, I think you're going to see them take this type of action, and maybe it's going to be staggered in the sense of we're going to take out this power plant and this, and it just gets worse and worse. If you take out the power plant, remember, it puts the Iranian government in the dark too. Now just the Iranian people are in the dark. The Iranian government, the IRGC, they're using the internet and other things to communicate, right? Not as well now, obviously. The point is, I think what we're seeing is the first part of the fall of the Iranian regime. And it may happen 6 months after military threat or our military activity has stopped. But the regime is going to fall. And the regime is counting on the fact that we don't follow through.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think at some point, do I see President Trump following through? Yeah, I do. And hopefully that will bring out somebody within that government or outside that government standing up who can inevitably make this regime fall.
Mm-hmm. Crane Durham from NothingButTruth.com. Thank you so much for all of your time and the great insight and conversation again today. NothingButTruth.com, Nothing But Truth Facebook page. You can find Crane there every single day. And
I love you.
Yeah, back at you, buddy.
And support the Iranian people.
Yes.
The people.
Thank you, my friend. Talk soon.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, we're going to continue the conversation into the 3 o'clock hour. It is Election Day across the state of Missouri. We're going to talk about the issues, the ballot box, and more with Susie Moore next.
The Herzog Tomorrow Foundation provides private school tuition scholarships through Missouri's new Most Scholars program to cover the cost of accessible, high-quality schooling.
Hi, this is Mayela Esser with the Herzog Tomorrow Foundation. Our private school tuition scholarships wouldn't be possible without the support of generous Missouri taxpayers. If you're a Missouri taxpayer interested in redirecting your tax dollars and sending them to Missouri students in need of a better education, please contact me at herzogmostscholars.org.
Better education for students creates a better tomorrow for all. Learn how you can help provide a better education for Missouri students at herzogmostscholars.org. That's herzogmostscholars.org. Also, sign up for The Lion, an initiative of the Herzog Foundation that carries articles covering a wide range of issues facing American families and culture. herzogfoundation.com. That's herzogfoundation.com.
Concerned about the condition of your windows driving up your energy bills? I was too. Until I called STL Windows and Doors. Their Provia windows combine old world craftsmanship the professional way, the Provia way, with over 65 years of combined experience, locally owned, offering competitive pricing and personalized service that the big box companies can't match. Call today for your free in-home estimate and start saving tomorrow. 314-277-5952 or stlwindowsanddoors.com.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on Newstalk STL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News at Town Hall. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. President Trump threatening to wipe out Iran's civilization tonight if Tehran does not agree to the terms of his latest ceasefire proposal. Here's White House correspondent Greg Cluxton.
In his darkest and most violent comments since the start of the Iran war, President Trump warned that a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. He wrote online that he doesn't want that to happen, but it probably will. The president has demanded that Iran reopen the Strait of Hormuz to all shipping traffic, or else the U.S. will strike Iranian power plants and bridges. He said Iran still has time to capitulate ahead of tonight's deadline. Greg Clugston, Washington.
The president's threats getting a thumbs down at the United Nations. UN spokesman Stefan Dujarric.
There is no military objective that justifies the wholesale destruction of a society's infrastructure or the deliberate infliction of suffering on civilian populations.
Also at the United Nations today, Russia and China vetoed a UN Security Council resolution that was aimed at reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Turkish officials say gunmen attacked a building housing the Israeli consulate in Istanbul.
Gunfire has erupted outside a building housing the Israeli consulate in Istanbul, leaving 2 assailants dead and a police officer wounded, Turkey's Haberturk broadcaster reports. The media says attackers were carrying long-barrel weapons. An exchange of fire with police left 2 assailants killed, while a 3rd assailant was captured. One officer sustained injuries during the clash. The area surrounding the building was quickly sealed off. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
At the closing bell on Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was off by 135 points. It regained some ground after a big slide in early trading. The Nasdaq closed down by 46, and the S&P 500 down by about 5 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The following is a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I had a lot of credit card debt, and it stressed me out. But what I thought was a solution turned out to be a problem. I kept hearing ads about debt settlement that seemed too good to be true. And actually, it was. When I called, they told me to stop paying my bills. That didn't sound right to me at all, so I hung up. Later, I found out that debt settlement is bad, real bad. Then I learned that there is a right way to pay off your credit cards. It's called a debt management program from the great team at Trinity. Trinity had a plan. In the end, I paid off my bills, I saved thousands, and I even improved my credit score.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976.
My name is Heather. Please forget debt settlement and remember Trinity Debt Management.
1-800-990-6976.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
In and out of the clouds a little bit today, but some peaks of sunshine and a cool day with a high in the mid-50s. Overnight tonight, dropping down into the 40s to near 40 degrees, and with a little light breeze in the morning. That's going to make it feel like the 30s for your wind chill on Wednesday morning. But a warmer day, in fact, very nice. Breezy and mild, partly cloudy and 73 degrees. The rain chances return by Friday. In the KMOV First Alert Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Kent Gerhardt.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Business owners, download your free playbook for financial clarity at SerenityWealthBiz.com. That's SerenityWealthBiz.com.
Fox News commentary with Jimmy Fallon next.
I'm alpine skier Michaela Schifrin. I've won the most World Cup ski races in history. But what does success mean to me? Success means discipline. It's teamwork. It's the drive and passion inside of us, and it's why Stifel is one of the fastest growing global wealth management firms in the country. If you're looking for success, surround yourself with the people who will get you there. If you're an advisor or investor, choose Stifel, where success meets success.
Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Past performance is no indication of future results. Investing involves risk. Consult a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
Here's Jimmy Fallon.
Innovation is what's actually cutting emissions in this country. The fact that they do want to make these products better, more efficiently, have them burn less fuel and emit less toxins in order to produce them is what's actually driven our emissions to the lowest point in 100 years in this country. So the people yelling at you about this whole, well, we've got to get out there and recommit to the Green New Deal and rid ourselves of fossil fuels and buy up all that infrastructure from China for solar-powered everything. I'm not telling you any of those forms of energy are bad. I'm just telling you they can't run the whole entire country, but that's issue number 100, where the Democrats are just not on the American side of the issue. Okay, securing the border? Nope, they want it wide open. Deporting violent criminals? Nope, they want it wide open. Voter ID, 85% of us want it? Go screw. Shut down the whole frickin' DHS so you gotta wait 5 hours at the airport? Yup.
For more commentary like this, go to foxnewspodcast.com.
News, analysis, opinion.
We cannot live in a world where we have radical Islamic terrorists threatening to hold the world's oil market and global economy hostage like this.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Well, it's a marvelous night for a moon dance with the stars up above in your eyes. A fantabulous night to make romance neath the cover of October skies. You know, the leaves on the trees are falling.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. Great conversation in the 2 o'clock hour with Crane Durham from nothingbutTruth.com. Going to continue the conversation. A lot of, breaking down the situation in Iran and Trump's ultimatum and the reaction happening across the country and across the world. If you missed any of that conversation, go back and check it out on our podcast. The best way to make sure that you never miss anything here on the show by being subscribed to our podcast. So, going to obviously continue to monitor what's happening in Iran and with the news, and we'll talk about it as we go through this hour. But there's also a lot of other things to talk about, including Election Day here in the state of Missouri. Mike Ferguson from Mike Ferguson in the Morning is going to be with us in about 20 minutes, and we're going to focus in on some of those issues that are being faced by voters at the ballot today when we talk to Mike. And speaking of Mike Ferguson in the Morning, joining us now on the line, as she does every Tuesday afternoon, just after 3 o'clock, the co-host of Mike Ferguson in the Morning, the host of Red State Radio, and, of course, from redstate.com, number 10 in your programs, number 1 in your heart, Susie Moore. How are you?
I like that tagline.
That's my new one for you. I've used it a few times now, and I think I like it. What was your number? Did you have a sports number? Did you play sports, and did you have, like, a go-to number? Because if so, I'll start using it.
Well, I played sports in the sense that I swam, and we didn't have numbers.
Yeah, no numbers.
So, and then everything else was just sort of recreational. So, no, I didn't have a go-to number.
All right, well, I'm going to stick with 10 in your programs, number 1 in your heart then. I've assigned the number 10 to you.
I like it.
All right, well, good. Perfect. So I did want to follow up with you about the birthright citizenship case last week, because when we talked last week, we were right. Wasn't it the day before the hearing started, and then Donald Trump was there, and that was a precedent. American president it had never happened before, so it was a big deal. And then everything else in the world started to happen. And I feel like these issues in the court sort of went to the back burner. So I did want to catch up on some of those issues with you. And like I said, there's also other things to talk about around the world and around the country today. But obviously this deadline that the president has issued, the Iranian regime to negotiate and reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face a military action like we've not yet seen to this point in this operation, which is saying a lot, obviously. That is the dominant story of the day. So I can't start this conversation without at least asking you about what you think about where we're at with this point, and is this do you feel like the president is telling the truth when he says we're going to see this massive military action today if there's not major negotiation steps taken by the Iranian regime in the next just a few hours here?
Yeah, I think we're going to see something give. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to be. He's been pretty clear and vociferous about this, so I have trouble believing that he's just going to say, oh, you know what, never mind. My gut tells me that something short of, flattening Iran is going to happen. And what that looks like, I don't exactly know yet. But it's going to have to be something that, can fairly be characterized as a capitulation on their part and an agreement to play by the rules. So, we won't know until we get to that point.
Right.
But I think that the reasoning behind this, extraordinarily harsh rhetoric is, well, I think it's twofold. I think it is to get Iran to budge, because all they have to do is budge a little bit, and it kind of shows who has the upper hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then also maybe to kind of smoke some people out or countries out. I don't know. That's just kind of a working theory I have.
That kind of goes along with that. I don't know if you heard that report that I gave in the last hour talking to Crane, but that I
was voting.
You might. Oh, I definitely would talk about that too. You might be onto something there, as there was a resolution that was proposed in the UN today by the resolution was proposed by Bahrain that was basically saying that the Strait of Hormuz is an international waterway that impacts the entire world. So the entire world should come together to work on a plan and to do whatever we need to do with the Iranian regime to get the waterway open. And it should be, it should be the world should be working together to make this happen. And China and Russia vetoed it. So did France on the initial vote. And so I think to your point, and what the reports are is that the plans were that the hope was, I guess, that Russia and China would abstain. They knew they weren't going to. They knew they weren't going to go along with the resolution, but they were hoping for them to abstain rather than veto. But they did veto. So I bring that up again just because I think you might be onto something that maybe this is smoking out some countries around the world and making them kind of like when you see the Senate leader, you see congressional leaders force a vote that they know they're going to lose because they want to put people on the record. I think you might be onto something there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it could involve countries, and I also think it could involve individuals even, or groups of people that they're trying to kind of maybe suss out. But, this is a serious situation. And obviously, people are kind of on pins and needles waiting to see what's going to happen. But, France did at least back off. After it balked at the initial proposed, and once they watered it down a little bit, which was basically just saying, hey, you can't block the waterways. Everybody's got a right to the free flowing waterways, and so they were on board with that. But yeah, China and Russia have put their markers down, and I guess we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be something obviously that we keep a very close eye on over the next several hours, and we'll keep you posted every step of the way. But there's going to be something. There's going to be some kind of news that happens today, and I hope it's good news. So let's get into some of the legal issues that we typically talk to Susie about every week. So let's go back to that birthright citizenship because it did make some news right after we talked about it and sort of previewed it last week. There's been a lot of discussion about the validity of the case that the administration was making, that the birthright citizenship law has been misrepresented and not accurately enforced for 100 years. And, I was really interested in seeing how that would play out and see some of those conversations. But what I saw, and here's where you can fill us in if there's more to it, maybe there's not, was that it seemed like, at least from a lot of the reporting that I was reading, was that the justices seemed to be very much more critical of the administration's case than entertaining or going down that rabbit hole of discussing, if they had a more valid case or if this was something that was misinterpreted for a long time. It didn't seem like, at least from what I saw, that they were entertaining that much at all. They seemed to shut it down pretty quickly. Is that what you saw? Is that accurate, or is that did I not read the right reports?
I wish I could say I actually had an opportunity to listen to the oral argument fully. I did not. I listened to bits and pieces of it, but I was in the midst of doing 3,000 other things. Sure. So I didn't get to really focus in and I inform my own opinion independent of others as far as how it went down. Based on, people that I, whose assessments and analyses I tend to trust, it seemed as though the justices overall were fairly skeptical of what the administration is proposing. That doesn't mean that they will for sure say, no, that's not going to happen, but it seems that they definitely have. And why wouldn't they be skeptical? Because the other understanding has been what we've been operating under for years. So this is it's a big ask. I think there's some solid arguments in favor of it, but I also understand that this is a very big ask, and you're talking about upending people's, kind of just general belief and understanding of how things are supposed to work. So it's no small thing if they were to do that. So I mean, my guess is my gut tells me is the end result's going to be one of those mishmash, mixed up type opinions that no one is happy with. But you never know. I mean, the thing of it is, I feel like on this issue, this isn't one where, it's the end of the world if the Supreme Court doesn't rule the way the administration has asked them to. It certainly puts the issue front and center. And really, honestly, this is something that should be clarified via congressional amendment, or not congressional, constitutional amendment, and or at least, legislature, the legislature. And for too many years and for too many issues, Congress has basically abdicated its role. And so you have executives stepping in and saying, all right, well, I'm not going to wait around for you guys. I'm going to do what I can to push the envelope here and see what I can push along with my, in terms of my agenda. So, yeah, I mean, I think that probably what you read and are hearing is consistent with, what a lot of people, a lot of the watchers kind of think is what's going to happen. But we'll know by the end of June. Let's say that.
Yeah, and that's why I ask, because like you, I don't have time to read the entire transcripts, and I have to go, to the news sources, and I go I'm on all of the news sources every day, the conservative leaning to the liberal leaning, to try to get the full picture. And everything that I saw being reported was only quotes and only highlights of the justices, being skeptical and sort of calling out.
But I also think people might lean into that a little too much.
Yeah,
too.
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that people might get a little bit overconfident based just because they're asking tough questions of one of the parties doesn't mean they're going to rule against them. It means they want to make sure. I mean, sometimes it can mean that they want to make sure whatever they end up doing, that they've explored all of the downsides before they sign off on something.
So we had that. We also last week had the big ruling regarding the conversion therapy coming out of Colorado. But then again, since those two issues, I wanted to ask you about Trump also being in the court. I didn't realize that the sitting president had never attended a hearing like that. That this was a first. What did you make of that? I mean, other than the fact that it's a cool little precedent or historic note, was there anything larger to the fact that the president was there that would not necessarily influence this case, but obviously it spotlights how important it was to this president to be there? What was your thoughts on him him attending?
I think that first off, I mean, there is a chair there designated for the president. Now, that, in my understanding, has typically been in relation to ceremonial proceedings as opposed to oral argument. It does seem like this was the first time a sitting president attended oral argument of a case that, of any case. But to me, the bigger thing was the number of people who somehow saw this as assumed that somehow he was going to stomp in there and as I put this last week, jump on the table and throw bananas at the justices or something, like an orangutan. I mean, it's like
objection, Your Honor.
Yeah, exactly. You're out of order. Walked in, sat down, listened to the full argument from the Solicitor General and part of the argument from the ACLU, and left. And okay, I mean, this president does things differently. There's no question about it. In so many ways.
My question was more of, I was more surprised by the fact that no president had ever done that before than the fact that he did, like you said, it wasn't, I don't think it would be a big deal at all because there wasn't he didn't do anything except watch a little bit. I'm surprised that has never happened before. That's, to me, what was
kind
more
of interesting.
Yeah.
Like you would have thought maybe Obama would have wanted to be there when they argued the Obamacare case or something like that. But I mean, it'd be kind of
I'm going to go on
interesting
my
thing,
hour
but
lunch break. I'm going to grab a sandwich and I'm going to go see what the Supreme Court's doing. You know, like,
think about it the reverse. You know, they attend the State of the Union address.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like it was one of those things that people made into a bigger deal than it really actually was. And I don't think his presence there is going to sway or change the justices one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had that. We had, like I said, the Colorado conversion therapy discussion last week. Those were the last court cases that were really making headlines. And then with everything else happening in this world, it seems like, that's been kind of pushed to the back burner. Is there anything else happening right now in the Supreme Court that we should know about? Are there any other major cases this year that we are, anticipating? What is the latest when it comes to court news?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably sounding like a broken clock, but obviously one of the biggest ones that we're still waiting on is the Voting Rights Act decision. And then that's one that's, we've been thinking that was going to be the next time that they announce opinions for the past 2 months.
Yeah.
So that one could come at any time, and that's going to have some pretty significant consequences. There's, obviously we'll be waiting on the birthright citizenship ruling. There's the one about transgender athletics that was argued a couple months ago, so that one could be coming down the pike pretty soon. And there's still more to be argued. There's a couple more that they just added like a week or two ago involving TPS, temporary protected status. There are a whole handful of cases in federal court right now involving different versions and issues involving the Trump administration's revocation of or termination of TPS for a number of different nationals, countries people from other countries. And I was trying to think of how to say that and be technically correct. But yeah, I mean, so there are some big ones still to come, and they haven't yet announced their next opinion date. They will hear oral argument again starting the week of April 23rd, but I would suspect there'll be at least probably 2 opinion hand-down days between now and then. And oftentimes, there's like 3 decisions that have to do with some obscure criminal procedural rule that like the people involved in the case care about, no one else does. And then there's like one kind of big flashy one. So we'll just have to kind of keep keeping tabs on them like we like to do.
One last story before we let you go, talking to Susie Moore from Red State, redstate.com, and, of course, the co-host of Mike Ferguson in the Morning. We're going to talk to Mike Ferguson about Election Day and the issues that voters are facing at the ballot box today in just a few minutes. This just to end this conversation on a bizarre, random story out of nowhere, because I thought it was interesting. Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida has taken pride in making his most recent public push for an issue in that state, and that being banning cousin marriages.
Oh,
Florida does not ban cousin marriage. And
like first cousin marriage?
Yes, like first cousin marriage. Quote from the governor, quote, Florida doesn't ban cousin marriage. Okay. That's a hanging curveball for us to do. We need to do that, DeSantis said earlier this week. He has urged state lawmakers to ban marriage between first cousins, reopening debate over a practice that remains legal in Florida but is banned in most states. Yeah. Who knew? Who knew?
Who knew? I wonder if is there a big clamoring for cousin marriage?
I don't know.
It's so funny.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because I'm like knee deep in genealogical research right now for my family. And I just discovered last night that on my mom's side, like 7 or 8 generations back, there's a couple who they're connected like 3 different ways. Like, in other words, they've got so there's like a second cousins once removed that married and first cousins once removed that married. And they all overlap. So I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was legal and not crazy unusual back then because of the way, populations were. But, but yeah, so funny. But none of them were actual first cousins.
Yeah, that's it. That's but that
I guess
who would have ever
been
guessed? Who would have ever guessed that would be making headlines in 2026 with all the other things happening? What's that?
Is there opposition?
I don't. You wouldn't think so. Part of the other quote was DeSantis said, "quote Other states have done it. I don't know why we wouldn't." But obviously, that feeds into some of the stealth jihad that we see when you are allowing things like that. It's things that are coming in from other cultures. Okay, so there's some blame that are not consistent. Yeah, with the United States culture. But okay, maybe that's the case now. But it was just, I'm surprised it wasn't banned, 50 years ago.
I just feel like it's one of those laws that everyone kind of forgot wasn't even on the books and just took for granted because there isn't a big clamoring for it.
Yeah.
That's what I suspect happened. But now that may be more of an issue because of some cultural differences. Yes.
Just a quick note here. Florida already bans marriages involving other close relatives like siblings, parents, grandparents, nieces, and nephews. But first cousins are not. But first cousins are not prohibited, not on the prohibited list. So,
I expect them to get that passed right away.
Yeah, you would think so.
Any of those
you just never know
marriages.
what we're going to talk about, Susie, when we have you on Tuesday afternoon. But as always, I appreciate your time very, very much, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Tony. You too.
That's awesome. Susie Moore from Red State Radio, which you can hear every Sunday here on News Talk STL. Of course, you can read her articles every day at redstate.com and tune in every weekday morning to Mike Ferguson in the Morning here on News Talk STL. Mike Ferguson and Susie Moore. And speaking of Mike Ferguson, he is putting in a little overtime. I got the whole morning show putting in overtime on a Tuesday afternoon. It is election day across the state of Missouri, and there are many important votes being cast by citizens across the area, and I want to unpack some of those important issues and expectations, talk a little bit about voter turnout and those sort of things that are happening today with Mike Ferguson. He joins us next.
Follow Tony Colombo on Twitter at Tony Colombo Talk. Live and local.
Well, here's what's on my mind. I think I got the solution to immigration.
News Talk STL. News, analysis, opinion.
So we have dealt with some severe weather already this year. Obviously, had some winter weather that we were dealing with in the last couple of months, and we're not out of the woods yet, certainly, as we are in springtime and storm season is right here upon us. It is important to remember that the team at Gutter Pros is there for you. If you have any issues that have developed from this bad weather, or you think maybe there's an issue up there that's been festering for a long time, don't wait. Don't let that issue turn into something more damaging and costly down the line. Call the Gutter Pros now. Gutter Pros, of course, your all-in-one gutter service team that brings years of experience and quality that's affordable right to your doorstep. Most importantly, they are local. They have been here for years. They will be here for years. So you can trust them to, take a look and tell you what's going on. And if they do some work and there's more problems down the line, guess what? They are still there for you. Unlike the guy who shows up in his pickup truck after a storm, that lives 4 states away that you'll never see again for the rest of your life. And of course, it's not just gutters. With the Gutter Pros, they all are your number one team for gutters and gutter installation and gutter repair and leaf protection and those things. But it's also fascia, soffit, siding installation, siding repair. They do it all at the Gutter Pros. And, after the severe weather that we've seen this year, maybe you're just getting outside. I'm cutting my grass tonight for the first time this season. And, you're getting back outside in the yard and maybe seeing things that you haven't, taken a close look at in a couple of months. And you see some damage to the siding, or you see the separation of gutters, any sign that there could be a problem. Call the Gutter Pros, have them come out, take a look, take advantage of their free estimate offer. That way they can tell you if there is a problem. And if there is, then you can, be loaded with that knowledge and that peace of mind, and you can move forward with the best decisions for yourself, your home, and your budget from that point on. So again, whether it be gutter installation, gutter repair, leaf protection, siding installation, siding repair, fascia soffit, they do it all at the Gutter Pros. Learn more and contact them now just by going to gutterpros.com.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
Easter had to be heartbreaking for one New York City couple, and so will future days. A mother and father pushing their 7-month-old girl in a buggy when a gunman on the back of a motorcycle just opened fire at a corner. Broad daylight. He fired at least 2 shots, then tried to race away, crashed, but then ran. Left behind in the stroller, a 7-month-old girl dead. Her 2-year-old brother grazed by a bullet. Police say they have the shooter in custody, but while they work on charges, the parents are planning a funeral. Mayor Mondami said, "We need to stop gun violence." Yes, he's making it about the gun instead of the man firing the weapon. There was immediate backlash to his comments, as one critic cynically said, "Too bad we don't have strict gun control laws." New York City does. But liberals won't blame the actions of the shooter. It had to be the gun. Had to be. The mother says of her baby, "I can't kiss her. I can't feed her a bottle. Everything I wanted to do, I can't. She's gone."
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting? They will take care of that. You need some mold remediation? They can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington.
Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com is your one-stop shop for expert insured tree care and more in the greater St. Louis region and at the Lake of the Ozarks. Visit hansonstree.com for 24/7 emergency tree care, grinding and land clearing, awesome organic mulch, green resource recycling, and more. Tim Jones here to tell you that whether you're dealing with old man winter at your home or business in the St. Louis region or preparing your lake home for spring, call Hanson's to help you out. No job too big or too small. Mention News Talk STL. Receive 10% off all tree care services. hansonstree.com, hansonstree.com.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 101.9 News Talk STL. Thanks again to Susie Moore for her time in that last segment. Again, make sure you're subscribed to our podcast. That's the best way to make sure you never miss any of the great conversations that we have here on the show. We put the show out as a podcast right after we get off the air every day on basically every podcast platform. So subscribe to Colombo and Company. And speaking of Susie Moore, the co-host of Mike Ferguson in the morning, it's a morning show type of day here on Colombo and Company as we have Mike Ferguson now on the line with us on this election day. Mike, thanks for some overtime on a Tuesday. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, but you've really downgraded after Susie, haven't Susie?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think we're just bringing the A-team in here to help me out on this busy Tuesday afternoon. So, yeah, lots to talk about Iran and what's happening around the world and things like that throughout the show today. But it is election day, and if there wasn't this major international issue happening, the whole show would be dominated by talking about these local issues. I think it's a super important one. I talked earlier about how I voted this morning, around 10:45 this morning, and I was pleasantly surprised to see a handful of people voting at the same time I was. I was afraid I was going to be the only one there. So I don't know. Probably not a sign that there's going to be record turnout or anything, but it was something nice to see. What are some of the things that you're really focused on, and what have you heard to this point, if anything, about momentum or voter turnout as we go through the afternoon?
Well, I mean, what we're hearing from the county clerks and the boards of elections and things like that is some of them have said, like St. Charles County, the Kurt Barr, the director of elections, he thought that there'd be, 13, 15% turnout. I think that's kind of optimistic. Typically in these elections in April, if you get 15% out, that's a lot, which is really, really sad.
Yeah.
Just a personal observance, when I left the station, I went to vote in Richmond Heights, and I walked in and I literally was the only voter in there at that moment. There were probably 20 people outside electioneering for different things. And then there was, 10 or 11 people who were working at the polls. But at the moment I was in there, which was probably 12:45 or so, that I was it. And then I think there was 2 who walked in as I was finishing my voting. But I was in and out in about 3 minutes.
So We've talked with Missouri lawmakers, specifically this year, about April elections and, the school board elections that happen in April that are so massively important, whether you have kids in school or not. Just because of the taxpayer dollar, majority of your property tax is going to that. So whether you have kids or not, these school boards and these school districts are a massively important issue. Just piggybacking on what you're talking about, like with the poor voter turnout, specifically in an April election, there's been talk about moving these important elections into the November ballots so more people participate. But I don't know if that's the right solution or not, Mike. I mean, I get it for turnout purposes, but if you can't make people care enough to vote on it, just because there's more people there doesn't mean there's more understanding or education about those issues. Do you think that moving these elections to November solves the problem in any way, or does it really provide any solution?
I don't think it solves the problem. I completely understand, where a lot of lawmakers, a lot of them are friends, are saying, it's ridiculous that school districts and libraries and city halls hide these tax increases on these low voter turnout. That's how they sneak the tax increases through, which is totally true.
Mm-hmm.
But it's our fault that we let them do that because we don't show up. So if we put these in August or November, like what's proposed in the state legislature right now on the Missouri side, you will get more people out, and there may be a fighting chance of defeating some more taxing increases and things like that. But the bottom line is, if we don't care in April, are we going to care in November? The reality is that these April elections more directly affect our lives than the November ones do. And I know people don't like to think of it that way, but on a presidential race, I mean, here's the thing is everybody gets really passionate about the presidential race. But the reality is, if you live on the Illinois side in the News Talk SEL listing area, the Democrat's going to win the state by 5 to 7 points no matter what. You live on the Missouri side of the News Talk SEL listing area, the Republican for president is going to win by 10 or 15 points every single time. So it's not that your vote doesn't matter. It does. But in these April elections, 10 votes could make a massive difference and change the outcome.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
a great
that
point.
More often.
Yeah, and I think it's something that I know you've talked about. I've talked about it a lot. The power of your vote in an April election, or an off-season election it just carries so much more weight and strength, and it should be something that motivates people to the ballot box. But that hasn't happened. It'll be interesting to see how these races turn out when we start to get some of these results later tonight and through tomorrow. What are you focused on, if anything, outside of the school board elections?
Right.
There's, we've got the Prop RT and some of the other tax issues happening. What are you looking at today?
I'm looking at those. Unfortunately, in the city, I have a feeling that they're going to keep the earnings tax probably and win that by a couple touchdowns, which is very, very sad. But the whole thing with the property taxes, I'm going to be really fascinated to see what happens in those and see if there's a difference, between, some of the redder areas to the more purple areas to see, because what's happening right now is the momentum is on the side of tax reform. People have had it with the taxes, especially as the cost of living has been going up over the last year. People are just done. So what you're seeing right now, Tony, is a mad dash by local governments all over the place to get as much and lock in as much money as they possibly can. And that's why you're seeing these things on here now, why they're fighting against reform so hard, because they know, I think, that if they don't stop the momentum now, or at least buy themselves some more time, they are going to have to shape up their own house. They are going to have to start cutting spending. They're going to have to start putting people first instead of government first, and the establishment does not want that. And, when you look at a library district or a fire district or a school board, it's very government first thinking, especially the school districts, government first thinking. They say, I saw one article this morning I mentioned on the air today, that a school board member in the district said, we can't survive on a fixed income when our costs go up. Okay, that makes mathematical sense, but guess what? All of us out here can't live on a static income when the costs go up as well, and my household is more important to me than your government institution. So really what they were arguing is government institutions should come first, and then we'll leave you with what we leave you, and you can survive on that. And that's the line of thinking that I think people are just done with in so many parts of the state.
Yeah, amen. And you mentioned that momentum, and unfortunately we're just about out of time here, but I would love to get you back on sometime soon, because that momentum of eliminating personal property tax and income tax and things like that, I know that that's what they're working on in Jeff City. A lot of lawmakers there in the Capitol working on it, but we'll see how that all plays out, and I'm interested to see if we get any influence on that from the results of the votes today. So we'll keep an eye on it very closely. We'll be tuned in first thing tomorrow morning as we react to Election Day today, and we really appreciate Mike Ferguson. Really appreciate your time, buddy. Thanks so much. We'll be listening tomorrow.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah,
All right,
bet.
bye.
That is Mike Ferguson. Tune in tomorrow morning for Mike Ferguson in the morning, and keep it right here. We'll be back tomorrow at 2. O'Reilly is next, then Tim Jones and Chris Harps.
Hunters, we are about 2 months away from turkey season. Are you ready? Hey, it's Mike Ferguson here, and if you stop by and visit my friends at Whistle Pig Outdoors, you will be. Whistle Pig is stocked with decoys from Avian X and DSD, clothing from Banded and First Light, calls from Rolling Thunder and Woodhaven, plus